Before we start this video, I would first like to take a few moments to talk about the trade war and how that's going to affect video game consoles in the future. According to Microsoft, Sony, etc., people who make consoles, they're trying to lobby the government to not, pass any additional tariffs on China because it's going to affect the cost of consoles. I might actually do a video on this later as a standalone thing, but right now I just want to talk about it for like 5 seconds that it might be a thing in the near future that console prices are going to be exponentially higher. I don't think anyone's talked about how much the price increase is going to be, and it kind of irks me that this is going to give some credence to, let's say, Stadia, which isn't going to have a console at all anyway. So it's going to mean that Stadia gets a big boost because they can make no console and sell tons of games, whereas Sony and Microsoft are going to struggle more so because they're going to have to make consoles to sell games that they make, which is going to be kind of shit. But today our topic is going to talk about why there doesn't seem to be anything new in the video game industry. Let's begin. Welcome to the 21st century, my fellow time travelers. Our newest games include a new Halo, a new Gears of War, a new Assassin's Creed, and of course a brand new Call of Duty. Unfortunately, that new Call of Duty game is just a reboot of an old Call of Duty game. It's literally Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Yay! Or something. The next Call of Duty game, I swear I'm not making this up, is Modern Warfare. A game that came out literally more than a decade ago is the next installment of the Bang Bang Shooty Boy franchise. Which is a tad sad, isn't it? All the directions you could take something like a video game about war, and you instead just go back to where it began. Which is even more bizarre when you remember that just 2 years ago, Activision already released a remastered version of Modern Warfare. I would be more excited if they took their really old PS2 titles and remastered those instead, but I never really get what I want, do I? Me being the cynic I am, I'm already prepared to delve right into some pretty misanthropic business practices on the part of Activision. If the remake of Modern Warfare is anything to base the upcoming reboot of Modern Warfare off of, everyone should be ready to experience crafting, in-game currency, loot boxes, because of course it does, and it will all still cost you $60. I digress though, because this video isn't about the sleazy former actions of Activision, mostly because that video would go on for freaking ages. This video is, however, about the lack of innovation in video games today. As I said prior already, Modern Warfare was already remastered in 2017. It has me asking myself why there needs to be a reboot at all. Haven't we done this already? Weren't we already at the point where Future COD was boring? I mean, let's be honest here. If Kit Harington can't sell your game, then it's a pretty shit game. I mean, we've already pretty much hit the point where Future COD was boring. Future COD must have been boring, since immediately after Future COD, we got old-timey World War II COD. Are we to believe that the only place for Call of Duty to go is an asinine circle of future crap, only to swing back to old crap? But hey, don't be so depressed, you stupid noob. They're really laying on the new stuff thick. For instance, you can now reload while aiming. Big round of applause. Big round of applause. That is gonna make the game much better. It's also a bit pedestrian also to not even tell a wholly unique story. Of course, the new story is based on the original Modern Warfare, including characters from the Modern Warfare games. I'm not excited about it. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been excited about a military shooter in a long time since they're all pretty much the same now, really. And I don't really get my rocks off paying $60 twice a year for online multiplayer that will die almost immediately when the new grimy military shooter comes out. After saying that, however, Let's keep in mind that modern gaming from all publishers is pretty much devoid of any innovation as well. Call of Duty isn't the only problem child in the orphanage. Plenty of modern IPs from all around struggle to release anything that feels fresh. There is no urgency to take a new direction or try new things, even though companies that have done this have received copious amounts of praise. It's even more troubling when you realize there is content out there that people are coming up with that is very interesting, content that would no doubt make a great game, but instead of pursuing it, publishers often water this content down until you get something boring and standard, an experience most would consider cookie cutter and unoffensive, an end product like Anthem. Ha ha ha! Hey everyone! I made an Anthem joke again! Yeah, no, they love it! No! I'm not beating a dead horse! Fuck you! One of the most definitive examples I can think of this problem is Far Cry. If you look at Far Cry, its entire history is pretty much a litany of just staying the same. Far Cry is one of those games that only ever changes the story, but never the gameplay. It's literally been pretty much the same experience since the first one. Or at least it's followed the same cemented pattern since Far Cry 2. It's telling that what made Far Cry 3 good wasn't even a change in gameplay or some kind of new mechanic that made it so much more awesome or a high-tuned AI system. It was literally the voice acting for the main villain, who wasn't even in the game the entire time. Climb a few radio towers so you can see more of the map. Go liberate a few compounds so that there's less guards so you have more access to the environment. Eventually you'll do some missions that involve taking out supply lines or killing some people. At that point you're gonna fight one of many bosses, all leading up to the big bad boss. And after you beat him, then you get some convoluted choice, which is really hard to make, and that's the end of the game. Another Far Cry title successfully delivered. Wash, rinse, repeat. Another scenario which is also disconcerting is when a company tries and succeeds on making something fresh and bold, and it ends in financial failure. I call this the Titanfall effect. The original Titanfall got a lot of crap for presenting players with an awesome premise with unfortunately lousy gameplay. It was an excellent new take on first-person shooters, yet innovation and a good idea couldn't save it. When a sequel was released that fixed most of the problems from its predecessor, it curiously wasn't picked up by consumers, even when the sequel was a much better experience. I believe this is one situation that keeps most companies from taking the leap of faith required to make something new. It's an overall fear that new will mean costly and the overall profit will be fruitless. Another hamper on innovation is the admiration for popularity. It's much cheaper and undemanding to simply take a premise that is already successful. One only needs to look at the recent inclusion of Battle Royale in console gaming. In everything, really. Standalone Battle Royale games, Battle Royale games and $60 console titles, Battle Royale mobile games, and for fuck's sakes, Battle Royale Tetris. All because PUBG and Fortnite got popular. It's why every new game has to be a franchise. You can't just have one Assassin's Creed game, you have to have a million Assassin's Creed games. It's best to take a premise that was successful once and build on that because it'll be successful over and over again. To me, personally, I get incredibly bent out of shape when companies would rather release a bad Halo game than look at something new, like Scalebound. Scalebound was of course a new IP that Microsoft was developing for a long time. They put work into it, they put money into it, but they canceled it, which I still to this day have no idea why. Even going so far as to show it off at E3 and demonstrate gameplay footage. I would have much rather seen a release of Scalebound than Halo 5. Another thing companies like to do nowadays is take something old but release it as new. For instance, Shovel Knight is obviously just a classic platformer, but it feels fresh and innovative because no one else is really doing it. We've been so far away from these types of games that they seem new and special to us. This has long been a downside of corporate-run gaming. It's a problem that's been in gaming for so very long. Look at the original premise for 3 of Microsoft's biggest titles, Halo, Mass Effect, and Gears of War. Both follow a super tough male protagonist, Master Chief, Shepard, and Marcus Phoenix. They then have to engage in battle with something like the Covenant, Saren, or the Locusts. But suddenly, there's a bigger, badder evil that overshadows the original conflict: the Flood, the Reapers, and the Lambent. Unfortunately, these 3 games are all telling pretty much the same premise. It's not that these games are bad per se, it's just that the story is pretty much the same thing, and to make it fit in any 3 of these games, all you need to really do is change the hero and the story slightly, especially since all 3 games are shooters as well. This is why I think the new Modern Warfare game is so abrasive to me. It's just so unoriginal. Hell, it's practically the same thing as the original. It's just too normal for me to be happy about it. I just expect it to be bereft of any love or passion. The same blueprint that led Dead Space off a cliff. Something that started out with so much newness and promise was all but destined to become bland and similar in today's marketplace. It all just kind of sucks that the goal of modern video game development isn't to make something unique and daring, but homogeneous and standard. No drive to be anything other than what the next guy is already. I'm also not saying all innovation is good, either. I know all too well the downside of innovation for innovation's sake. Just look at the Wii U. Activision certainly innovated when they added crafting to the remake of Modern Warfare, but unfortunately, I hated it. It's certainly hard to strike the correct balance between functionality and innovation, but if the gaming industry could find that balance, gaming would be much better off.